The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
And welcome to On Cue. On today's program, we visit with author Milt Ost about his trips to Russia and his book, Tumbleweeds Burning. Trey Mewes from the Austin Daily Herald stops by to get us prepped for the upcoming election. And of course, we'll check in with the Vision 2020 folks. On Cue is next.
From KSMQ Television in Austin, this is On Cue, connecting interesting issues and interesting people. On Cue.
Trey Muse is the political reporter for the Austin Daily Herald, and he joins us today to talk about some of the races in our area. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, great to see you again. This race season seems like it's been kind of quiet. You know, the governor's debate we broadcast not long ago was kind of everybody was good, but there weren't any big clashes. We're not hearing a lot. Who are you following and looking at this season?
Well, I think you have a point that this particular season is a little bit quiet. There's not many big button issues in the local races or the county races, and in our neck of Minnesota, there hasn't been a whole lot of huge issues, big flashpoint issues that people can immediately get behind. And so I think you're finding that more races are going to be about popularity than they are about the issues. People are going to be, the candidates are going to be dealing with a lot of complex issues this time around, and there won't be a lot of simple messages to convey to voters. And so that's why I think you're seeing more of a quiet election this time around.
I think, and your beat is Mower County in Austin. I take it back, one race would be Freeborn County Sheriff. If you're following that, that's been kind of controversial, so there's been some sparks there, but by and large, everything else has been pretty quiet.
I think you see that more often with sheriff's races. They tend to be a little bit more personal. I know in Mower County, our sheriff, Teresa Amazai, is running unopposed this year, so you won't see that particular event happening in Mower County this time around. By and large, most of our incumbents are unchallenged, especially at the city level and the county level. Like I said,
not state so much.
Not state so much.
Go over the Mower County race. We've got incumbent Gene Poppy for one.
Yep. We have Gene Poppy going against Dennis Schminke, excuse me. Dennis Schminke, Republican from Austin who had worked at Hormel for many years. And he has stepped up to challenge Gene Poppy. His message has mainly focused on job growth and economic stimulus. But I think he's going to face a bit of a challenge because Gene Poppy is an incumbent. She has more than 10 years experience in the state. She is in a pretty strong Democratic area of Minnesota. So you're going to find that this race won't be as clear-cut as you might think, just because although Schminke is really trying hard, he has a lot of messaging behind him. I'm not sure how much of a challenge he's going to present to Poppy, who has so much building off of her record, her strong base here in Mower County, and just the momentum that she carries, having served Mower County for so long.
And we're going to be seeing those folks in person. KSMQ, we're going to do some roundtables with the state offices, and you're going to be helping us out with that, Trey, to get those views. What about other House races? Senate, not this time.
The big House race that I'm looking at is the U.S. First Congressional District race between Tim Walz and Jim Hagedorn. Walz is obviously the incumbent, has had a pretty strong record of voting for agricultural practices. However, Hagedorn has made quite a splash ever since he entered the campaign. Hagedorn is a Blue Earth businessman, a Republican who had actually served in the U.S. Treasury. So he is bringing a lot of messages concerning dismantling some of the restrictions from the Environmental Protection Agency for farmers. He's very concerned with the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And he has gone out to many communities within the 1st Congressional District, in a grassroots effort to speak to people. And that, I think, more than anything else, is going to be how you win elections this time around. Because once again, there aren't a whole lot of big, huge issues. It's a lot of the complex, more detailed issues that voters aren't going to quite grasp right away.
Sure.
So because Hagedorn is going out and and making his presence known throughout the 1st Congressional District, he's actually presented a bit of a strong challenge to Walz this time around, especially since he overcame the Republican endorsed candidate for the race to begin with. Hagedorn was not the endorsed candidate coming out of the GOP convention in May. That was Aaron Miller. But after about 6 weeks, Hagedorn decided to enter back into the race, despite the fact that he had said that he would abide by the GOP's decision, because he didn't think that Miller was being aggressive enough on the campaign trail. And Hagedorn ended up winning the primary election in August and becoming the new GOP-endorsed candidate.
Hey, he's not shy. On the debate in Mankato, he was front and center there. And 1st District, it's big. It's the bottom 5th of the state from east to west. I'm just guessing on the thickness of it, the state, but it's all the way east, all the way to the west side. So that's a lot of traveling.
It is a large portion of the state, and you have to think that Hagedorn is putting a lot of miles in. Now, Walz, I'm sure, has also been doing plenty of campaigning, but seeing as how he is the incumbent, he is also serving in Washington at the same time. So he is going to really have to rely on his strong record in the area in order to combat Hagedorn's messaging.
Now, I got to tell you the truth, Trey. When I get in the voting booth, and by the time I get down to judges, I do pretty good research on those races, but judges, I'm never quite as up to snuff on the candidates. I don't really know much about them. Who do we have this time?
Well, once again, the judges' races aren't always the easiest to cover, just because judges, unless there are some controversies, don't normally get covered, because judges tend to do their jobs, and it ends up being more of a popularity contest than anything else, rather than a contest based on a judge's particular judicial record. Now, in Mower County, we have 2 new judges this year, Kevin Siefken and Jeff Kreitzer, who were appointed earlier this summer after former judges Donald Rishavi and Fred Wellman retired. So they will most likely be voted back in. I mean, I can't see anything, I don't know of any challengers to any judge within our area. So I think that will be, once again, a bit of a quiet race. And of course, since they are fairly new to the position, I don't know if they're going to have enough time to really make an impact as far as people's opinions on how fair they serve within the Mower County District Court.
Heard a lot about absentee ballots, early voting. Has that changed the landscape much?
It's been particularly interesting in our neck of the woods, just because absentee ballots this time around, you don't have to provide an excuse to get an absentee ballot. You can technically walk into the county office and pick up an absentee ballot, no questions asked. I believe that absentee balloting is open right now. So anybody who wants to vote early can go down and submit their ballot. There is no photo ID requirement yet. Minnesotans voted that particular issue down last year. So you're not finding a whole lot of restrictions this time around compared to previous elections, which I think is meant to help some of the workload during election night. At least that's my understanding.
There were some late ones,
because there were definitely some late ones. Yep. So it's going to be more beneficial, and I know our county auditor treasurer is seeing this as sort of an early step into some of the early voting practices that other states like Colorado have.
And about information and county auditors, between now and Election Day, you can find all the information about the candidates and your polling place, where you go if you're not sure, at the county auditor's website, I suppose, of your particular county.
As well as the state Secretary of State's website. I know the Secretary of State has several links to various elections. You can actually go online and see who the candidates are and learn more about absentee balloting requirements, early voting requirements, and figure out where your polling place is.
AustinDailyHerald.com, too, for profiles.
Oh, of course, we're going to be running plenty of coverage on the upcoming elections. I know that we're going to be covering several of the forums and debates that are coming up, and so we are obviously very excited for those. I know some of them are in flux right now, but we are very excited to cover that and provide that service to the community.
Wonderful, Trey. Well, thank you for your work reporting in the area, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Stay with us. Author Milt Ost from Albert Lea will join us next.
You can watch On Cue anytime by visiting the KSMQ TV website, ksmq.org.
And welcome back to On Cue. I'm Eric Olson. We're going to have a fun talk about a brand new book, serious topic, but a love story and a love for our author here who wrote this book over many years, Milt Ost from Albert Lea. And the book is called Tumbleweeds Burning, a novel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And congratulations,
Thank you,
Milt, on this book. Now, I had met you at Lions in Albert Lea for the last couple of years. I didn't know you were a budding author, and here you come out with this wonderful book. Tell us a little bit about the storyline. It's a love story, but historical also.
To me, it is a love story to begin with, not romance love, but commitment love. These people that are the basis of the book really loved the land, and they loved their families, and they loved God. And that was really the basis of their life, which is not unique. There are a lot of groups that do that, but it's the foundation that makes the Midwest what it is.
And this story traces back, as I understand it, it takes place in the 1800s.
Starts in the 1800s.
In Russia.
Right.
And you visited there quite a bit for doing research over the past years for the book.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about where you went and how that fits into the book.
A lot of places, but the places that are involved here are mainly St. Petersburg and the area around Odessa on the Black Sea. This is where this book is set, just a little bit to the west of the Black Sea in lower Ukraine. And that's the area that I did a lot of research in to see that it's accurate from the way that they lived.
Were they having the political unrest in Ukraine as they are now when you were visiting there? Was it tense?
Not precisely Ukraine, although Turkey was making noises from the south moving up into Russia, and that's why these people were invited into Russia from Germany to begin with, because the czars wanted to put these people in as a buffer zone between Turkey and Russia.
And then what brought them to America in your story?
In the story, as in history, there was a lot of persecution. They started to be looked down on by the Russian people because they had gotten free land, and the soldiers, the army, the police started getting rambunctious, and there was a lot of stuff, persecution in all of these villages. They would ride through, burn crops, attack people, and finally the people said, enough, we're getting out of here.
Was it because of religious faith or just nationality that caused this conflict?
I suspect it was just nationality, and part of the problem was that these German people really never saw themselves as being, what shall I say, Russianized. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to become part of the Russian culture. They didn't want to adopt the Russian language. And so they were really looked down on by the local people, and that led to some persecution.
Have you found quite a few folks here in the Dakotas or even Minnesota that you drew on for experience with their families and how they came to be settled here?
Yes, a lot of them. Our own family. A lot of the stories are passed down from our own family that went through this. But the first church that I served was actually partly made up of people who went through all of this themselves. They were the immigrants that came out of Russia. So they knew the stories from back there firsthand.
We should say you were a retired minister for
I don't
many,
know
many years when you said you were first parishioner, so I just wanted to throw
Yes.
that in there. Okay.
Yes.
And so that's how you met or became aware of this?
Yes. And then, of course, they went through the whole pioneer business in America with sod houses and dirt houses and all that stuff. So they knew both the Russian part of that story and the American part firsthand. And I spent a lot of hours holding hands with some dear, beautiful old grandmas that told stories that were wonderful and also that broke your heart.
About losing family members
Yes.
and separation, I suppose.
Separation.
We didn't have communication like we do now, so it was when you got on that ship, you were not going to see your native country again or your people or your relatives?
Ever.
Ever.
That was over. Yeah.
Maybe by letters? Did they send mail at all?
There was communication, but it was shaky. Yeah, it took a long time. But what was so difficult in this American part of the story, for a lot of the women particularly, was that in Russia they all lived in villages. The farmers did not live on a farm. They lived in villages and went out to farm. When they came to America, they were all in their own farm. The men would get together, but the women sometimes spent 3-4 weeks without seeing another human being except their own kids. So a lot of these women had some very difficult times.
Oh, because they weren't farming, right? It was different setup from
Yes.
what they were used to.
Yes. They came over thinking they would be living together and they'd have close neighbors. Well, my grandmother couldn't see another farm and didn't know there was another place around until they went over the hill.
My goodness. Some pictures to share. Thank you for sharing these. You spent a lot of time in the country. You know, it doesn't look all that different from North Dakota or, you know, Wisconsin or even Minnesota.
I suspect that's part of the reason they ended up in the Midwest as they did, yes. They felt at home.
Are we looking at, is this near Odessa also? Or?
It's probably 100 miles west.
And these were people, were they dairy farmers or what was their?
Grain. This was grain farming. To this day, the Ukraine is still called the breadbasket of Russia.
Oh.
And produces immense amounts of grain. And part of that was the result of these people moving into that area and producing mostly wheat.
And some local residents, is this Odessa also, these folks?
This is out of Odessa, two dear old tantas, grandmas that went through the Second World War and know that story. These are contemporary from today. These are people I saw. And
you spoke Russian? You speak Russian?
No, I do not. I had a translator.
You did?
Yes,
oh, good.
Yes. But there are a number of people that still know German. And so I speak German, and so in German we could communicate with the older people.
Oh, you could?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And wow, what a labor. What a great, it must have taken you quite a few years to write this, or not too much? How long
Probably
did it take?
3 years for the actual writing. Yeah, I spent something like 10 years working on it, researching, traveling.
And a little bit of your whole life experience.
Well, yeah. It
wrapped
was,
up a little bit.
I was born into it.
Yeah. Well, Milt, this was just a fascinating walk through your adventure. What a great book, and congratulations.
Thank you.
The book is called Tumbleweeds Burning. Now, folks can go on Amazon
Yes.
to find it, and if you're in Albert Lee, Sterling Drug, it's called Tumbleweeds Burning, a novel. Milt Ost, that's spelled O-S-T, is the author from Albert Lee. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a joy to be here.
And we'll be right back with our Vision 2020 update when On Cue returns.
Queue up your own comments for On Cue and send them to us at onq@ksmq.org. On Cue's Vision 2020 segment is brought to you by Hormel Foundation, Games People Play, and Turtle Creek Estates.
And welcome back to On Cue. I'm Eric Olson. We're talking today Vision 2020 update, something called Fall Fest with Stephnee Leathers from Downtown A Destination Committee. Hi again.
Hi, thank you.
Fall Fest sounds fun.
It is fun. October 25th, downtown, starting at 10 a.m. And we have lots of activities for families, and we're also adding this year live music happening at B&J and Dusty's.
And is this a thing where the streets shut down, or people go from store to store, or what, how does it work?
We're not shutting the streets down, but there's lots of activities downtown. We're going to have trick-or-treating for the kids at the merchants, games and prizes and lots of activities, and a pumpkin craft, and Matchbox is doing some mini theater. So,
you know, we ran into each other at the the downtown plan meeting, with the unveiling, and you know, even the planners from out of town who were giving the presentation were saying, well, you know, a lot of good things have been happening. Did you remember when they didn't have anything really to complain about
right.
downtown?
Right, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
I thought overall the plan was really positive. They had I think they did a good job of assessing all of the valuable things that we have downtown and just how to make improvements overall, which was good.
And your committee is working side by side with this planning process?
I think all of the committees, as well as the public, have had input throughout the process, which has been very good. And from here, my understanding is the city kind of takes it and decides if they want to adopt this plan and move forward.
And going back to Fall Fest, what's Plinko?
Good question. Plinko is, I think it's an old game where you put some kind of a chip in the top, and it goes down, and it lands on if it lands in a certain area, you get a prize. So we have prizes for all the kids. I think
I've played that in an evening establishment once or twice over
in your
the
younger
years. Yeah, my younger years, that's right. Okay, so that's going to be there too. Trick-or-treating, cookie decorating, mini plays by Matchbox Children's Theater.
Yes, very exciting. That's another new addition this year. Also, I didn't mention the March of Dimes is hosting the movie Casper at the Paramount. And that starts at 2:30.
At the 25th.
Yep.
At that.
There's a lot of activities all day.
And you also have, I guess, the Artwork Center. Is that a change to downtown? They moved a little bit, but that's right on the corner there.
Yep, the Arts Center opened this summer with the Artworks Festival happening, which has been really a great addition. They have opened arts classes for the community, and I don't know if you've gone in, but it's beautiful, and there's lots of fantastic art, so great addition to downtown.
And then that little museum that they're talking about.
Oh, the small museum that's moving downtown. The SPAM Museum, we are very excited to have them coming downtown in 2015, and I think it'll be great for business and also just to bring others from outside our community in.
And I think that's going to just be kind of there's going to be a lot more cars, a lot more people coming downtown, which is a good thing. And you hope that in this planning process they are aware of that traffic. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating it, but I mean, over time, I think you're going to have a lot of more traffic.
Yep,
downtown.
I have heard that they have 100,000 people visit the SPAM Museum each year. So if you think about the impact of traffic and people on that, you're right. There will be a lot more traffic downtown. So
because they talked about in the plan 4th Avenue, kind of squeezing that in. That's a concept to make it more of as I understand it, a pedestrian thing and not a main drag. And I know a lot of folks use that street now as a main drag, and then bringing in all those people.
I think they called it the Arts Corridor, which I think is a great concept to really make 4th, shine in terms of everything arts. But to your point, it is a major traffic segue through town, so they'll need to figure out what they want to do with that. If we want to make that really an arts-focused corridor and slow down traffic, it seems like, or potentially leave it as it is.
See, it's great when the planner person isn't on the show here, so we can just talk about it,
exactly,
and give our ideas and opinions, and we sound like
I thought the whole process was really great, though, because they reached out to the public a number of times to get input and thoughts about, what people were concerned about and if they had any ideas and thoughts. So overall, I thought they did a really good job.
And going back to the Fall Fest, are we still trying to tell residents that it's cool to come downtown, or are they still in that learning phase? Because you're kind of trying to change the dynamics.
I think so. You know, when I talk about the Fall Fest to people who are from Austin, they say, "Oh, we had that so many years ago when I was growing up." So I think it's about reminding people that it's fun to come downtown and that there are activities and things to do. And as you know from the spring kickoff, it is fun and it's a great place to be. So I think it's reminding people to come down and enjoy it.
So the music will be indoors, not out in the street. And is it a ticketed thing? You need tickets to get in?
Nope, no tickets necessary. You just go to Dusty's and B&J from 8 to 10 o'clock.
Okay, it won't be in the back alley like the last one was.
We decided it was too cold, unfortunately, to do something outside. Unless they change their mind and they want to move it outside, they can, but we thought maybe it would be too chilly for people, so.
Okay, how fun. Thanks, Stephnee, for updating us.
Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. Stephnee Leathers from the Downtown Destination Committee. And that will do it for our show this week. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Eric Olson. We'll see you again next time.
On Cue is a production of KSMQ Television in Austin, nonprofit public television.